My lords, some battles cannot be won with gigacannons and hordes of xenomorphs. As you well know, politics, indeed the galactic community, can be a far more bloody affair than the most hellish of war zones. Today's report will detail the inner workings of how the Galactic Senate functions, how laws affect the galactic community, and what each resolution actually does. Whether you were a confused egalitarian debating the species rights of a devouring swarm while it eats your people, or perhaps a tired empire who just wishes to be left alone, this is the report for you. Let's begin with what is the Galactic Community. The Galactic Community, or Galcom, is the governing body where each member empire can vote on laws via the Senate, and these laws will affect all other member empires. Any empire that established communications with a Galactic Community member is able to join or leave the Galcom as they wish. Though leaving does come at an influence and opinion penalty cost. Should an empire wish to rejoin, they will have to wait a minimum of 20 years to do so, and genocidal empires, unsurprisingly, are unable to join said community. They tend not to have the best dinner conversation. To form the Galcom, an empire that is not a Gestalt consciousness, or of course a genocidal, must have established communications with at least 70% of the other empires in the galaxy, or at least 3 non-genocidal empires must exist. All non-genocidal empires will then be invited to form the Galactic Community. If at least 3 empires agree, the Galcom will be created, and all empires who voted to form will become members. The Senate is where resolutions are proposed and voted upon. It goes through 2 reoccurring phases, recess and in session. When the Senate is in recess, no resolution is voted upon. They're having tea and biscuits, I suggest. When recess ends, the proposed resolution with the highest diplomatic support will be put into session, and a recess lasts a mere 2 years. It's a lot of tea and biscuits. When the Senate is in session, all empires will be able to vote on the debated resolution. Supporting or opposing a resolution will add the empire's diplomatic weight to either side, while abstaining will not add diplomatic weight to either side. All empires can change their vote every 4 months, and when the session ends, the resolution will be passed if the total diplomatic weight of the empires that supported it exceeds the total amount of diplomatic weight of empires that opposed it. A session lasts 1440 days. 4 years, if you can believe it. Quite a nonsense under the pretense that everyone must be heard. Sadly, at least in our opinion, the Galactic Community believes that everyone deserves a voice, but it is somewhat of a meritocracy, in that each empire's voting power is tied to their diplomatic weight. Diplomatic weight is a measure of how influential or perhaps how powerful an empire is. It's somewhat of an arbitrary measure, as in reality we all know that the empire with the largest gun will rule the galaxy. In any case, diplomatic weight is gained from fleet power, economy, technology, and population. Assigning an official to the Galactic Community will increase diplomatic weight, and this can have a drastic effect on an empire's diplomatic weight, depending on quite how good they are at their job. Diplomatic weight can also be gained depending on an empire's policies. For example, an empire in the supremacy stance will see their diplomatic weight from their military ships increase by 100%, whereas their weight from technology and economy will half. Which brings us neatly onto resolutions, which is more or less the point of the Galcom, at least the public point. We are well aware how corrupt the entire process is. Indeed, we have been propositioned more than once with significant gifts, lavish promises, and favours if we assist mega-corporation votes in the deregulation of commerce and voting in favour of any slave trade resolutions. Nevertheless, there are 13 general paths of politics that empires tend to pursue, but on top of this, there are sanctions, space fauna rights, denouncements, galactic markets, pre-FTL stances, galactic focuses, as well as a couple of other niche resolutions. I shall cover them all, and I'll give my opinions on them. We begin with the paths or the trees of politics, starting with Galactic Commerce. Galactic Commerce is, as the name suggests, a trade-focused policy. Like all of these paths, it has 5 stages, and the effects will increase from stage 1 all the way through to stage 5. The first, I'm sure many of you are familiar with, it is buzzword standardization, and this will increase diplomatic weight from economy by 20%, increase trade from jobs by 5%, and increase bureaucratic upkeep by 5%. As you go through the tree, those numbers will get bigger, but you'll also start to see a penalty for naval capacity, an increase in consumer goods production from observing pre-FTLs, and by the time you get to the end, the profit maximization engine, you'll see an increase in resource from jobs and massive increases in elite happiness with massive penalties in general population happiness. This is certainly a resolution that the megacorps and trade-focused empires will pursue at all costs. Any Gestalt empires will seek to oppose this, and by the time you get to the end, so will the egalitarians. The second economy-focused politics tree is industrial development. This also increases diplomatic weight from economy, but rather than increasing trade, it increases worker output or menial drone output at the cost of habitability. As you move through the path, as before, these numbers will only get bigger, with the addition of minerals from jobs and alloys from jobs beginning to increase as well, and eventually you'll unlock something called Project Cornucopia. This is where the Empire believes that near endless resources are at their fingertips if they have the courage to seize them. This will increase your max mining districts by 4, increase minerals from jobs by 5%, and a decrease in habitability of 20%. On top of the original minus 25% habitability, this will make your planet quite grim to live on. As you would expect, authoritarian empires will vote for this, and anyone who's an agrarian idol, an environmentalist, or a planetscaper will oppose it. Which brings us onto the greater good resolutions. Now these are very egalitarian focused. The Charter of Workers' Rights, which I'm sure many of you will be familiar with, increases diplomatic weight from POPs by 20%, increases worker happiness by 5, refugee attraction by 10, and also increases worker political power. As you go through the tree, you will begin to see things such as the banned subsistence living standard, various slavery types being banned entirely, and by the time you get to the universal prosperity mandate, you will see almost all living standards with the exception of utopian abundance being banned entirely. It is quite the statement should you ever reach this. As suspected, of course egalitarian empires will vote heavily in favour of this resolution, and authoritarian empires and megacorps will be strongly against it. I should note as well, it has the now rare stat of decreasing empire size from POPs by 10%, making this rather powerful indeed. Now we move on to Ecological Protection. This, as the name suggests, this is very much a set of resolutions that are set up to try and maintain planet stability and the environment where possible. The Pan-Galactic Recycling Initiative, which is the starter, will decrease diplomatic weight from economy by 20%, it will decrease POP consumer goods upkeep by 5, and increase clear blocker time by 10%. As you go all the way through to the Paradise Initiative right at the end, 100% of diplomatic weight from economy will be removed, meaning your economy will have absolutely no standing in the Galcom whatsoever, which is remarkable indeed. It will also increase habitability by 15%, food from jobs by 20%, as well as heavy penalties to some of the most important resources in the game, a minus 30% alloys from jobs and a minus 50% minerals from jobs. Furthermore, terraforming will be banned entirely unless you're terraforming to a Gaia world, and empires will be banned from using the Deluge Machine and the Planet Smelter Colossus superweapons. It is a remarkable political route indeed, and clearly very popular with environmentalists, as they will push for this, as will the agrarian idols. Anyone who does not use food, lithoid species, mining guilds, rock breakers, planetscapers, they will not be voting for this at all, indeed they will oppose it. Next up we have one of my favourites, Unchained Knowledge. Unchained Knowledge begins with the relatively tame cooperative research channels. This will increase diplomatic weight from technology by 20%, research station output by 10%, but have a mild increase of starbase upkeep by 5%. Unchained Knowledge, as perhaps the title suggests, can get out of hand however. By the time you get to the fourth option, Ethical Guideline Refactoring, you'll see your diplomatic weight from technology has increased to 80%, meaning that technology is really starting to have quite the sway on the Galcom. Other effects will have come into play. Solar panel, listening posts, and black hole observatories will have their effects increased by 100%. Researcher output will be increased by 10%, worker and slave happiness reduced by 15%, but here are some of the important ones. Outlawing artificial intelligence is banned. Non-interfering in pre-FTLs is banned. Imposing restrictions on your own research, meaning that you're stopping your empire from researching so-called dangerous technologies, is banned. And when it comes to leader enhancement, any but the highest available to your empire is banned. And bear in mind, that is only number 4. It gets even bigger. By the time you get to extra-dimensional experimentation, the wheels have truly come off, because you will have enabled something called extra-dimensional experimentation. Now, I won't spoil too much for you, but what this essentially does is bring the minimum crisis year forward by 25 years, meaning if your current endgame date was set at 2400, which is the default, generally the crisis can't start rolling until 2450. Now, jump drives will bring that forward by 25 years, and given that most of the time jump drives exist in the galaxy by the endgame, the sort of default endgame year is 2425. However, if you have made it all the way through this political tree and unlocked extra-dimensional experimentation, the minimum crisis year is brought forward by another 25 years, meaning you can get hit with a crisis on the 2400 mark. It is incredibly dangerous indeed. As one would expect, materialists in general, and anyone interested in astrometeorology, will push heavily for these resolutions. Spiritualists, xenophiles, and egalitarians, they will oppose it. Now we move on to the Divinity of Life, which is very much an anti-robot resolution. Materialists will not support this in any way, and it can create quite the divide in the Galcom, particularly if there are synthetic empires in there. You'll find out why shortly. We begin with Comfort the Fallen. This will decrease diplomatic weight from technology by 20%, increase spiritualistic ethics attraction by 10%, and increase unity from jobs by 5%. As you go through the resolutions, you will eventually come to a defined purpose. By the time you get here, this will decrease diplomatic weight from technology by 100%, and increase spiritualistic ethics attraction by a whopping 50%. The really dangerous things that are coming here though, is that synthetic evolution will be banned, non-servitor machine intelligence will also be banned, and citizen rights for artificial intelligence will also be banned. This is dangerous for 2 reasons. Firstly, it clearly splits the Galcom because you're essentially banning all synthetic life, intelligent or otherwise, which is dangerous indeed. But secondly, as we all know, by not allowing artificial intelligence to have citizen rights, you drastically increase the chances of an AI rebellion. So it may be that by the spiritualists pushing down this path, it results in exactly what they don't want at all, which is an AI rebellion and a galaxy full of machines. As you would expect, anyone with a spiritualistic ethic type will be voting for this. The final interesting point from a defined purpose is that it somewhat forces machine empires to become rogue servitors. Whether that overwrites their current algorithm is unclear, but ironically, existing rogue servitor empires will be voting heavily in favour of this, as would any spiritualist as you would expect, and any machine or mechanical founder species, including cybernetic greed empires, will vote heavily against this, as will any empire who exploits robots. We move on now to the more war-focused resolutions, beginning with mutual defence, which starts with the well-known readied shield. This will increase diplomatic weight from fleet power by 20%, naval capacity by 10%, and ship upkeep will decrease by 5%. Perhaps the one that people are most familiar with will be the Military Readiness Act, which is the second resolution on this tree. This is known because it will ban you from using less than 50% of your naval capacity. Should you fall below 50% of your naval capacity and sanctions are enabled, which we'll come on to shortly, your empire will be sanctioned until you're capable of fielding a fleet greater than 50% of your current naval cap. Very interesting indeed. This can go all the way up to Renegade Containment Doctrine, whereby you'll see 100% diplomatic weight from fleet power, 50% increase in naval capacity, and it will enable some extra Casus Belli. These include the counterattack, the animosity, and the preemptive war. As you have probably guessed, this will be heavily supported by militaristic empires throughout the galaxy. The only ones who will oppose it really are the pacifists, or if you're in breach of galactic law. Ironically, this is one of the easiest of the resolutions to push through the Galcom. In direct contrast to mutual defence, we have the rules of war, which is championed by the pacifists. The Guardian Angels Act, which is the first stage, will see diplomatic weight from fleet power decrease by 20%, defence army morale increase by 15%, and army upkeep increase by 5%. As you go through the stages, things will start to get banned. By the time you get to the Demobilization Initiative, empires will lose 100% of their diplomatic weight from fleet power, they will see 100% pacifistic ethics attraction, naval capacity will be reduced by 25%, and then lots of things will be banned. Purges, except displacement, will be entirely banned. Using any Colossus weapon with the exception of the pacifier will be banned. Indiscriminate bombardment, Armageddon bombardment, devastation bombardment, all banned. The unrestricted wars philosophy in your policies will be banned, and a militarized economy in the policy section will also be banned. This perhaps reflects why the pacifists are called the fun police. Who would ban using a world cracker? In any case, unsurprisingly, pacifists will support this and militarists will not, although interestingly, rogue servitors quite like this one as well. I guess they just want to keep the world safe after all. The final military-focused resolution is defence privatization, although this one is very much focused on mercenary enclaves. The first resolution in the tree, security contractors, will see your mercenary enclave naval capacity increase, the naval capacity usage decrease, trade from jobs will increase, and the enclave capacity will increase as well. By the time you get all the way through to corporate peacekeeping right at the end, these numbers will all increase massively, but importantly, you'll see diplomatic weight while hiring mercenaries increase by 40%, meaning by simply hiring a mercenary, your diplomatic weight will go up by 40%. Make that make sense? And you will be banned, that's right, banned from having no hired mercenaries or marauders. I find this to be bizarre indeed. You'll be banned from not outsourcing your military. It's bizarre. In any case, militarists will somewhat oddly support this. I don't know why they would support the outsourcing of their military, but nevertheless they will. Corporate empires will support it. Well, that makes sense, I guess, if they're supplying the mercenaries. And pacifists and Gestalts will vote against it. Of all of these resolutions, defense privatization doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But there you go. Next up we have Intergalactic Directives. Now this is a much shorter resolution tree. It only has 3 choices. We have regulated growth, which will increase monthly loyalty change at the cost of empire size from systems, ensured sovereignty, which will do the same thing but more, and a voice for all, which on top of increasing the monthly loyalty empire size from systems, will also increase empire size from planets, and your specializations will see extra bonuses. So bulwarks will see their defenses increase, Scalarium research will increase by 50%, and Prospectorium deposit discovery size will increase by 50%. It's also interesting to see that integration permitted is no longer valid, expansion prohibited is no longer valid, and expansion regulated is no longer valid, meaning that you're less able to influence how your vassals are controlled. On the other end of the spectrum, you have bureaucratic surveillance. This is essentially the opposite of intergalactic directives. It allows for much tighter controls over vassals. Administrative insight will see Overlord fanatic ethic attraction increase and loyalty go down, and by the time you get all the way through to personal oversight, your max holdings will increase by 2, your loyalty will decrease, independent censors and independent diplomacy are no longer valid options, and holding limits of 3 and 4 are no longer valid either. The final 2 general resolutions we have are focused on cosmic storms. I won't spend too much time on these, since they only become available after the first cosmic storm has appeared. The first is storm knowledge sharing. This will increase storm technology chance, decrease storm technology cost, increase unity in a system with a storm, and increase, oddly, diplomatic weight from POPs. I'm not quite sure why it does that, but nevertheless. By the time you get all the way through to storm and manipulation mandate, you will get guaranteed cosmic storm technology, and your storm relief or nullifier buildings will increase farmer, miner, and technician output by 30%. You will be banned from not having the storm dampening generator technology, and you'll be banned from having planets without any cosmic storm building. For some reason, egalitarians will strongly vote for this one. In converse, we have storm environmentalists. This will see increase in research station output at the cost of storm technology increasing, and your diplomatic weight from people will go down. By the time you get all the way through to Storm Preservation Initiative, your research station output will increase by 50%, at the cost of 15% energy, 25% ship upkeep, and you'll be banned from using any storm, repulsion or attraction buildings, and any repulsion or attraction edicts. I guess storm environmentalists wish to just let the storms go, and space weather exploitation seeks to exploit the storms where possible. The next resolution to look at is those regarding space fauna. Now these aren't set up into trees like the ones that we've just discussed, but they are sort of converse resolutions. The first two are relating to Tiyanki, so we have the Tiyanki Conservation Act or Tiyanki Pest Control. The Tiyanki Conservation Act essentially attempts to outlaw the killing of Tiyanki. Killing a Tiyanki, be it a bull or the matriarch, will put you in breach of galactic law for 10 years. It will come with no reward whatsoever and a 1,000 energy credit fine, or if you kill the matriarch, a 5,000 energy credit fine. On the opposite end, you have Tiyanki Pest Control. In this scenario, this bans empires from having wild Tiyanki within their empire's borders. Killing a Tiyanki will no longer cause an opinion loss with a xenophile empire. Similarly, we have the Space Amoeba Protection Act, so this will look to protect the amoebas. All members will be offered the Amoeboid Pacification Empire modifier, and refusing puts the empire in breach of galactic law. The other two space fauna resolutions we have are Cthulhuid Eradication and Voidworm Eradication. These are very straightforward. They ban the respective space fauna from being within your empire's borders. Wild space fauna, I should state. Essentially, if a Cthulhuid comes into your system and the Cthulhuid Eradication resolution is in effect, you must eliminate that Cthulhuid. Very straightforward indeed. We have galactic market resolutions. These determine what populations can and cannot be sold on the slave market. There are 3 resolutions. You can allow organic slave trade, you can ban the organic slave trade, and you can ban the sentient slave trade. Essentially, allowing organic slave trade means that you can buy and sell organics as well as mechanical species. If you ban the organic slave trade, you can only trade in mechanical people, and if you ban the sentient slave trade, well, you can't trade anyone. There are a number of resolutions regarding your pre-FTL stance. Pre-FTL resolutions determine in what ways members of the galactic community are allowed to, by law, interact with pre-FTL civilizations. We have the Equal Standing Act, the Non-Interference Act, and the Exploitation Act. They are rather as their names suggest. The Equal Standing Act essentially bans the non-interference and aggressive interference FTL policies. The Non-Interference Act enables the non-interference pre-FTL policy regardless of ethics, and bans the active or the aggressive pre-FTL policies and any diplomacy at all with a pre-FTL species, meaning that you can't prevent a nuclear war, for example. And then finally, the Exploitation Act is the opposite end to those two. It enables increased research from both passive and aggressive observation, and it bans the non-interference pre-FTL policy. Empires who go down the politics tradition tree get access to a couple of special resolutions. They are rather niche, the first of which is constitutional immunity, meaning that the targeted empire will never be in breach of galactic law. This feels very under the table to me. You have Champions of the Community, which will increase naval capacity, Development Aids, which will increase diplomatic weight, and Galactic Threats Committee, which will increase damage to the Endgame Crisis faction. But now we should really move on to Sanctions. Sanctions are resolutions that apply negative modifiers to empires in breach of galactic law, or who have been denounced. We'll come on to denouncements next. Interestingly, and this shows the interplay of politics, empires are 25% more likely to vote for a sanction resolution if a rival is denounced or in breach of the galactic law, but 50% less likely if a member of their federation is denounced or in breach of galactic law. Essentially, what they want to do is pile on the pain. There are 4 types of sanctions: economic, administrative, research, and military. Economic sanctions will increase the cost of market fees in trades and decrease diplomatic weight from economy. The administrative sanctions will decrease the amount of unity an empire produces and increase your diplomatic influence cost. Research sanctions will decrease your research speed and decrease your diplomatic weight from technology. And military sanctions will decrease your naval capacity and decrease your diplomatic weight from fleet power. But what's denouncement? Well, Denouncement is a unique type of resolution that targets specific empires, i.e. you can propose to denounce Empire A. If the denouncement resolution passes, the denouncement empire gets a -25% diplomatic weight modifier for 10 years, and if the empire is a member of the Galcom, they will also be affected by the sanction resolutions, even if they're not currently in breach of law. It really can pile on the negatives. Galactic Focus is another string in the bow of the Galcom. The Galactic Focus is a sort of the current objective of the Galactic Community, and when accomplished they grant every member of the Galcom a bonus in influence. They will only appear when certain conditions are met, so for example a common one is to form the Galactic Market, but focuses will come into play in certain crises. It's worth noting the Galactic Focuses can be changed by proposing a Galactic Priority Resolution, but they will also cycle through on default. If an empire is the Custodian, which I'll come on to shortly, they can change the focus without requiring a resolution, and the focuses will be such things as forming the Galactic Market or dealing with a crisis level event like the Great Khan, the Voidworm Plague, or one of the endgame crises like Contingency, for example. Interestingly, the Galcom can go as far as to denounce awakened empires, banning any member of the Galcom from becoming a subject of these awakened empires. The Galactic Council is created by passing the Form Galactic Council resolution, which requires the Galcom to be at least 20 years old. After the Galcom is created, the 3 highest diplomatic weight members of the Galactic Community will be chosen to sit on the Galactic Council. The Council gets some special powers. They can propose council denouncements, for example, or propose emergency resolutions if required. Most interestingly, one of these council members can then go on to become the Galactic Custodian. Now, the Galactic Custodian enjoys the following benefits: increased monthly influence, increased diplomatic weight, emergency measure cooldown reduced by 50%, and a decreased veto cost and cooldown. They will receive open borders from every member of the Galactic Community. They can end a session after half its time has passed, and they will get access to a bunch of new resolutions, which will solidify their power. These include extending or removing the custodianship term limit entirely. They'll have custodian reforms, which can include galactic mobilization, introducing the Galactic Standard, an anti-piracy initiative, or even proclaiming the Galactic Imperium, which I'll cover right at the end. They can also form the Galactic Institutions, these being the GFD or the Galactic Defense Force, the Interstellar Navigation Agency, the Galactic Trade Organization, and Galpol. The GFD is essentially a special fleet that the Custodian has access to. It can be far larger than any regular fleet, has its own Titan limit, and is something that the Custodian is solely responsible for. It can quite easily become one of the most powerful fleets in the entire galaxy. The very final thing to touch on in this report is the Galactic Imperium. As mentioned, the Custodian can proclaim the Galactic Imperium resolution, and what this will do is turn the Galactic Community, or perhaps reform it, into the Galactic Imperium. All Galactic Imperium members will automatically leave any federation they're part of, and they cannot form or join new ones. The Custodian will become the Galactic Emperor. Their ethics will shift towards fanatic authoritarian, and their government will shift towards an imperial one. They will gain the Galactic Sovereign Civic and the ability to upgrade the planetary capital of their empire to the Imperial Palace. The key features of this is that the Galactic Emperor cannot be attacked by Galactic Imperium members, and empires cannot willingly leave the Galactic Imperium. If a member of the Galactic Imperium is attacked by an empire who is not part of the Imperium, the Emperor will have the option to join the war. Joining the war will increase Imperial authority, which is a mechanic that represents the strength of the Imperium. The Emperor can choose to disband the Galactic Council or keep it reformed into the Imperial Council, and the Galactic Emperor is able to propose the following very special resolutions indeed. They can change the way the Imperial Council works, disbanding it entirely if they wish. They can announce an Imperial Crusade, whereby all members of the Galactic Imperium must declare war on the target empire and force them to join the Imperium. They can of course turn the GFD into the Imperial Armada. They can introduce the introduction of Imperial Legions, and they can also charter a megacorp to become the official megacorp of the Galactic Imperium. There are ways to undermine the Imperial authority, and this requires some quite detailed espionage operations, which I won't discuss in this report. Nevertheless, that covers the Galactic Community and the Galcom. Do you have a favourite resolution? If you do, let me know in the comments.